Live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, what's going on? 6-year Jesse James of Jesse James Comics in Glendale, Arizona, 8,000 square feet of awesomeness. I have been a collector since 1982 and a seller since 1983. My first convention I did was in Las Vegas as a 13-year-old. So I am a senior Overstreet advisor. I've been doing that for a very long time. I do most of the moderns and the variant covers for that. So we are now rock and roll. This is a talk show about comics in general. What makes it run, what makes it fun, what makes it interesting, and what makes it gives you a financial gain if that's your business. The big talk this week has been about eBay joining the live streaming world. eBay is now in the live streaming world, which is very crazy because even the top selling live stream company right now, last month got 8 million views on their page, even though that ranks them at 20,140 as far as live streaming. But in the comic book world, they are number one. They are a company that's been in business 2 years, so they're still learning the ropes, and they got a lot of hills to climb over the next couple of months just to get back on track against eBay. Their average show is about 1,200 people per show. eBay is averaging about 30,000 people per show. eBay every month gets a little over 35 billion views. 35 billion views. Obviously, Amazon is the big boy at 65, 68 billion views a month. What does that mean for someone selling comics? I don't know. I mean, do you really need that many views to sell comics? Basically, when I do my shows, I have an average of 20 to 35 people watching in-house and over 1,000 people watching out of the house, which means they can't comment, they can't buy anything unless they join, and then it gets quite complicated on how the algorithms work on that. YouTube as well is getting into live streaming, being able to do buy it nows. I'm not quite sure if they're able to do auctions in their betas yet. We're talking to a company that actually is working with Shopify, where that is kind of originating. So there's a lot of ways out there to buy your books now, whether it be in a comic book store, you can buy it on eBay, Amazon, live streaming, digital, conventions, right? You can go to conventions where a lot of books are sold over the weekend. Still, the weekly back issue sells world to world because that's Monday through Sunday. So a lot of things to talk about today. The biggest surprise was it wasn't a surprise. We all knew eBay was going to do this. They have 9 million subscribers, so why wouldn't they do this? For a seller to sell, you need to be vetted, and there is a fee, but it's not as much as what the other guys charge, and that's very interesting to me that they want to move up a little to do this. Keep in mind, you have set customers that collect comic books. They're just going to click on, and pretty much you have to have evergreen product, which is 300 to 500 to 1,000 items of the same thing, or else your shows will be over extremely fast. The other thing, big world thing in the world is how grading is evolving. It's becoming, at some point we had a year year and 2 months waits to get your books back. We're now seeing people get their books back in 3 to 5 months. That's a great thing. If you fast track, you're getting it extremely fast. The great thing about eBay is they are now doing signings. So people that you would normally not meet, you send in your books, they sign it for you. I would think at some point they would do exclusives and do it the opposite direction and actually drop ship. Drop shipping is the number one thing happening in live streaming sales or in e-commerce as a whole. So a lot of companies are what they're doing is they're sending you one comic and then they'll then drop ship the rest of the product to your customers. Is that a good thing? As a comic book seller, kind of no, right? Because you're giving up your customer base, you're giving up all their information, and that's not really something you want to do. Interchanging your customer base is not something that anybody should do. If you're going to sell your business, the number one question that they ask you is your customer base and do you own it? So that's very, very important to put in your notes. So the other thing I want to talk about CGC is how CGC got started. CGC are graded books. They use a scale 1 through 10 with 0.5s in between. Now, a lot of us in the comic book world would wish they would get rid of the 0.5s and just do 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, not past 11, but 10s, and stop doing 9.2s, 9.4s, 9.6s, because what's the difference between that? That doesn't make sense, right? So we're hoping that CGC looks at that. They do have new owners who put $500 million into CGC. They're hiring tremendous amount of people. That is a scary thing to have new people who have never graded before all of a sudden grading their books. The seniors are grading the high-end books. Now, the things you want to look at in grading is a couple of things. This is a green label. Green label means that it is missing something. So in this case, it's missing a coupon, right? So it's missing a coupon. So in the comic book world in general, I don't know why that matters. If it doesn't affect the comic book itself, then I don't think you should get a green label. Maybe you still get the blue label that says missing coupon and the grade. But to make it a green label, it makes it sound like an error, right? Kids did stamp. They cut out the stamps. You know, the old theory is before grading, no one cared if the stamp was in it, right? The stamp itself, hold on a second, folks. Hey, Cole, what's going on? The stamp itself, cut out or not, does not affect the story line. And that's something that I completely disagree with. I think comics are meant to be read, but we have that 10% that buy only for value. They buy something for $1 that's worth $10, where people buy something for $1 and they put that in their collection, right? And they try to complete their collections. Most store owners, this is the funny, here's a funny fact for you. Most store owners that actually open up their stores is because they have so much duplication in their collection. You got to keep in mind, we did not have apps. We did not have comic bases to put our inventories in. It was a sheet of paper. I use graph paper, write in the numbers that you need. You go to the comic book store with your stack of books or your stack of pages and you figure it out. Most of the time you didn't bring that in either, and you just bought, and then that's when you realize, oh, heck, I have, I think when I opened up my store, I had something like 35 Mutants 98s, 20 Amazing Spider-Man 300s, because we're just collectors, and we buy. And when you get books for $1 back in the day, you're going to pretty much buy everything. So very cool there. So should you grade your books? Grading your books, I will tell you, I don't grade books. I don't think I've ever graded a book that's immaterial in 40 years. That's just my prerogative. But if you want great books, I strongly suggest that you grade books that have high grades to it. Um, 8 O's and above. Anything below, unless it's an X-Men #1, don't don't worry about it, right? Keep it in your collection. Keep in mind, once you grade these books, you can no longer read them unless you go out and buy reader copies. Most of the books that are expensive books, go out and get the Marble Milestones so you have the book to read it. At some point, you want to reread your books, right? Enjoy history. Most comic books have elongated history, right? They have your history, where you bought it, when you bought it, how much you paid for it, did you get a deal? Did you pay cash? How many lawns did you mow? Or whatever it is. That's what is very cool about comics. So once you get into the grading world, it becomes a very big, it becomes a very big decision on how you want your collection. I know when people show me their graded books, they're very fast, right? Oh, I got 5.0. Okay, very cool. For a comic book, you can kind of flip through it and say, oh, remember this ad and remember this, remember that. So if you grade your books, great. If you don't grade your books, great. There's no difference in it. There are people that have full runs of X-Men graded. That's awesome. The other thing that we want to talk about is prototype books. So back in the day, they did prototype books. This is the trickiest question in Marvel history. Well, not one that I would say one of the top trickiest questions. The trick question is what color is the original Hulk skin? Right. In this case, the prototype is actually brown. Right. This is a reprint. That is the Hulk in brown, right? The original Hulk is obviously in gray, right? So very, very cool. So just some little nostalgia there. I believe there's 10 prototypes done. Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk. Um, I'm not going to remember the 10, but if you go on, you can punch in prototype Marvel characters. And that was their concept of how characters would look. And a lot of them never even came to fruition. They just kind of threw them away and said, nope, let Kirby come in and all these other guys create their own great stuff. And that's how these characters were created. The other trick question is, what color is Hawkeye's original um, outfit, costume, I guess? And traditionally, the answer is purple. And again, his original costume is brown. So if you did not know that, it's very, very cool. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on the screen here. Obviously, this is a reprint, so we can mess it up a little. So his original costume was brown. That's his original costume. And then he would switch over to the purple costume. So his original costume that he wore out in public was brown. So two little cool historical things there. The other thing that really was kind of cool, we always wanted to know how the mixing of Marvel and DC characters were. How do you mix them? How do you make them awesome? So Amalgam came out. Amalgam was a cross between Marvel and DC. This is Speed Demon. Obviously, very, very cool. Demon, Iron Lantern, Batclaw, Spider Boy. Great, great story arcs that combine the two. There are, I believe, 15. Iron Lantern and Batclaw are the big boys of the group. Spider Boy is actually a cool one to collect, and I could see them somehow intertwining that again in the future. They might have done it in the second series. I didn't really partake in the second series that came out, but very, very cool there. The other thing you want to look out for is variant covers and exclusive covers, right? So what they do is they do exclusive covers for stores. And if you really want to bump up your sales, you want to do homage covers, right? So if you do homage covers, Dark Knight, very cool homage cover. That's how you sell a lot of exclusives right off the bat. The most iconic cover ever done. Over 1,000 covers have been Amazing Spider-Man 300, or you could call it Spider-Man 1, either or. Both those covers have been tremendously done. New Mutants 98, Batman Adventures 12. You see a lot of that. We have done, which I thought had fools. We have done a assortment of Iron Man, Iron Maiden homage covers of all their albums. So this is Do You Poo? Do You Poo? Over 1,100 exclusive covers done. I shouldn't say that. Over 1,100 variants and exclusives done. A combo of both, because he does do his own traditionally. So very, very cool there. So very, very cool stuff. So if you're looking to do exclusives, or you're looking to do or buy exclusives, yes, yes, we have done a big grouping of them. I believe we've done 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Maiden exclusives. Our next one, we're going to do scenes from Star Wars. So the next one we're doing is the trash compactor scene where Han is holding up the big steel piece. You got Luke pushing, Leia helping them to in the back. So that's going to be our next exclusive for Do You Poo. We just put that in. That was going to be on a delay. He's fallen a tad behind, but that's okay. Marat Michaels has been doing comics for a very long time. Very good friend of us, ours. So check out Do You Poo. Very, very cool stuff there. The other thing that you can buy, which are very, very cool, whether you call them lenticulars, motion comics, these are have been done over the last probably about 5 years, where they've done these lenticular covers. Very cool. That is a genre thing that really didn't stand the test of time. I think lenticulars come here and there, but it's very hard to, I think, collect those type of items because they're just covers that are lenticulars, or you could buy the raw cover. And most people right now, with the cost of comics, are sticking with the raw covers. Raw covers now for new issues are anywhere from $4.99, $5.99, $6.99. Some are hitting $10. Of course, you get the prestige mark on those. So when you start getting bells and whistles, they really can't be duplications with just added stuff on, right? So people that do acetates, I know acetates has always been a big thing where you kind of have the acetate, you add something to the cover, you flip it, and you see the original screen. Very, very cool. Blank covers have always been a big thing because when you buy a blank cover, you're actually authorized to approve to draw on that cover and sell it. Now, you can't mass produce it, which a lot of people do, especially in prints, right? A lot of people do unauthorized prints. Whatever, if a customer's buying it, and if they like it, does it matter that it's approved by Marvel or DC? Probably not. Uh, now there are two people that are sticklers on that. You can't do Lady Death prints. You have to get authorization to do anything Lady Death, or you will get something from comics lawyers. So that's probably something you want to stay away from. If McFarlane is at a convention, he will call out people that are doing unauthorized prints as well. So very, very interesting when it gets into that world of how does someone create extra income with most likely, I mean, if they're using their own characters and you do a print of your own character, what's the chances of you getting $5 to $10, or if you're doing Iron Man and you're getting $30, right? Or probably Cheesecake, right? Cheesecake is the number one selling cover in the United States. I'm guessing around the world. The Cheesecake just sells, right? So Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Batgirl. Well, not really Batgirl, but those type of characters. That's a big, big market. You can't get away from it. Uh, I know a lot of the markets, about 5% of the markets, get into the nudity thing. Again, I don't buy that. So it doesn't affect me. And if people do, great, right? You know, that's just, as long as you're buying something in the comic book world, that's a good thing. There's too many shows out there that are really pushing the label on, oh, stop doing exclusives, stop doing variant covers. To me, make as many as you can. The other thing that was big, and I don't know where I put my notes. Where did I put my notes? The other thing that is big in the comic book world is, I don't know where I put my notes, but is print runs, right? So a major company announced that their print run was 105,000 copies worth ordered through Diamond. So they come out and they talk about it and whatever. But the people that are in the industry know what those numbers mean. Well, in business, you know what those numbers mean. That's wholesale, right? So if you actually take your numbers and you say, how do you calculate actual sales in a comic book store? Well, we sync all our comic book computers together, and that's how you get your number. None of the companies will do that because no one wants you to know the numbers. 105,000 comics sold might trickle down to about 12,000 comics sold in a comic book store. In this particular case, we know the company had bought about half the line, and then the rest of the line are exclusive. So again, those won't hit most of the comic book stores. So it's very tricky when it comes to numbers. The best example is X-Force #1 Holly bag, over 1 million copies sold. Every time we buy a store out, they have 500 copies in their back room. Or if we buy a collection, they have 10 copies in their collection. Death of Superman, they have every cover, but they have 5 covers of the Death of Superman. So wholesale and retail numbers are completely a different storyline. When we get back from break, I'll have my notes on the other topics. But a lot of things have happened during the week that pertain to the comic book world. And our job is to dissect them, what actually makes sense, right? What really actually happened? Is it bells and whistles? And if it's bells and whistles, who's doing the bells and whistles? If it's Boom on the Power Rangers, that's probably just a great marketing team getting you to buy some of their covers. Bells and whistles would be the death of someone, or the first appearance of someone, or you're adding a death of someone or a first appearance with a lenticular cover with a limited print run. So bell and whistles will never go away. It's just kind of like digital, right? It comes in, everybody freaks out. Now it's had to decrease for 3 years straight. Who cares, right? So very, very interesting how the comic book world goes. By time something hits Wednesday news, by time it gets to Sunday, it's not even news anymore. It's been proven wrong, or it's been proven right, or it's just a great marketing campaign that got exposure through all these shows on the internet that kind of bite, right? I go on a lot of shows and I have to debunk their agreement with a lot of stuff because they're not investigating. They're going with the Bleeding Cool article and saying, oh, this just happened, not understanding. Most of those articles do not fruition at all. So very, very cool stuff. We've got a couple minutes left before we go to break. I'll get my notes so we can finish up. I will be ending 10 minutes early. I do have a major show I do on Sundays at top of the hour, so I need 10 minutes to kind of prepare for that. But very, very cool. You are watching the experience on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the bell, do all that stuff. Tell your friends. Live streaming is very cool. I'm one of the few store owners that actually do a talk show. I know Jen does one, but out of the 2,500 store owners, I think there's maybe 3 to 5 store owners that actually do a show. It's very tough to do shows and get the quote unquote the real truth out there because sometimes the industry doesn't want you to tell you that. So anyways, I'm going to take a quick break here. I will be back in a couple of minutes. You're watching The Experience. I am 6-shooter Jesse James. I will see you in a few.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at The Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox. Hey, it's producer Kyle. If you like going places where the action never stops like Las Vegas, the Caribbean, and Atlantic City, then you're probably not who I want to talk to. But if you want to surround yourself with amazing comic books and comic book content made by a devoted group of smart and funny industry insiders, the Experience Members Club was made for you. You can join the Experience by becoming a supporting member of our YouTube channel. You get access to exclusive content that no one else gets, like members-only live streams, pre-sales, one-on-one Q&As with production staff, and other content that's exclusively for members. Plus, for a limited time, if you sign up now, you'll be entered into our giveaway of a slabbed comic book. Just call this it's 2022, no one makes phone calls anymore. Scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen, or just visit the membership section of our YouTube page, and you'll be on the VIP line of the comic book buffet, baby. Look at the size of those perks. Join today, and I'll be saying, who loves you, baby? Me. The answer was me.
All right, folks, we are back. I'm the 6-year Jesse James. This is The Experience. We're hanging out with you, just talking some comic talk, basically some how to collect, how to invest, how to do some cool things, how to partake in the comic book world. When I got in the comic book world, I actually volunteered to take out the trash at Phoenix Comic Con. And then 6 weeks later, I was actually running the comic book side, over 150,000 people. With great volunteers. Volunteers are what makes cons work, and that is what always makes cons work, basically. It's having a great group of volunteers. They don't actually have to be comic book fans. They have to be collector fans to understand the pace that's going on. If you don't know, it takes a year to set up a con. So we are in October. So if you are doing a con today and you're signing up today to create a con, you got about 11 and a half months to put your guests together, build your budgets, get the hotel rooms. Even if it's a small con, I have a small con coming out in May of next year that we purchased about a month and a half ago, and we're getting pretty close to finalizing our major guests. It's a lot of work. I don't suggest running cons. Very few people run cons, if you know that. If you take the percentage of people that run cons across the nation, it's very small. Maybe 400 cons a year are done in the collectible world. A lot of these cons have become anime cons. Those have been kind of the big thing. Comics actually are kind of secondary in most of the main conventions across the nation, unless it's a New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, as that. So learn your cons. The best way to learn a con is to go on their page and learn the map. Very interesting if you can go in and learn the map. A lot of companies now allow you to save where you want to go. So you can take your app and you go to that con and it tells you, oh, I want to go to these tables. And it shows you how to go to these tables in order so you're not running all around the place. So that's very important. Know your exits, right? If there's a secret to San Diego Con that I'm not going to tell you all here, but there is a secret to San Diego Con that very few of us know, that I can get from one hall to the other hall in less than 8 minutes. If you're a traditional comic book fan, you're looking at about anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes to get from one end to the other. So there are some secrets you can learn at cons, and go join them. Listen, at the end of the day, volunteer. Most cons are very cheap to get in the door, other than the, pardon me, the main conventions. They're very affordable. Go have fun, take pictures. Even if you have a small budget will get you some cool stuff. There's a lot of freebies you can get at cons. Usually the freebies are the ones that are worth the most in the end, versus the books that you buy. Also be aware that the new trend now is to take your old exclusives that didn't sell from 5 years ago and now bring them to San Diego and have them considered San Diego exclusives. So be very cautious of that. If you're not sure, ask them the day of print. That's all you need to do. Ask them the day of print. And then if they have at the San Diego Con, what is altered? If it's something that is altered, most likely the publisher has not authorized that. And that creates havoc, like what happened in the last couple of conventions with acetates and all this other stuff that happens in the world. We're not going to get into that because no one cares. As I tell people, in the collectible world, they might care, but the collectible world is, 5% of the market. Collectible people looking for value. If I was to ask the next 1,000 people to come in the store, did you hear about the acetate issue with the company? At one of the conventions, 99% would say no, and the 1% that did know would say they don't care. Customers don't like getting into that talk. That's why I don't talk about it. I think negativity doesn't help the comic book world, and most of the things that are negative don't come from the comic book world, and that's where the problems arise. If you sell on a live show and you have a YouTube channel, that doesn't actually, and you have a talking show on YouTube, that doesn't actually make you part of the comic book industry. There's more steps to the comic book industry to be part of the comic book industry. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people will talk. For instance, someone was talking about how eBay's numbers were fake on their live stream. That 29,000, that's a fake number. And I said, okay, cool. How is it fake? Well, it just is. Okay, well, how did they fake those numbers? Well, they did. Well, that's the problem. We have people out there that talk about negativity, but they don't actually know the answers to their negativity. It's just fun to jump on negative things. One of my close friends, Dennis Barger, is he's the Howard Stern. He's the shock jock of the comic book world. So he says something, cool, great. If I don't agree with it, I don't have to argue with him because it's not worth my time. So be very conscious to what you get caught up into. Look at the person who's saying it. See where their experience is. Where are they a novice? If they have a talk show, how many talk shows have they done? Right? If they've done 10 talk shows, well, buddy, you got about another 100 to go before you're going to really know what's going on. written over 100 plus articles for Bleeding Cool. That doesn't make me a writer or anything. It just means I had my opinion 100 times. Not every single one was right in other people's mind. I thought I was right every single time. So very, very cool. The other new thing in the news this week was, well, it actually started last week, but it's new this week. Again, I don't care. AI art is the new thing, and a lot of people oppose it because anybody can do it. Well, that's fine that anybody can do it, but you don't have to buy it, right? Now, I personally think if a cover is done by AI, it needs to be identified on the cover, not inside the cover, so that people know that if they think the cover's cool and they find out it's AI and it's not someone actually drawing it, that might hurt us in the future in the comic book world. But if you tell people, most people again aren't going to care. You got that 1% that cares about everything that happens. Best comic book attitudes in the industry just go next customer up. Let's find out what they want, find out what their needs, and sell them some great books. So very, very cool on how the industry is continuing to pivot. Again, will this be part of the industry? Yeah, it'll be 0.5% of the industry, right? I'm sure 50 years ago when you were mailing your art into Marvel for Spider-Man, and all of a sudden you got to email it, people were complaining about emailing, right? It just, oh, how dare you email? You should have to, and it just filters in. We need to pivot. We need to be smarter. We also need to realize that it's about the customer, right? And if they feel that $5 is great for AI art, then that's great. Artificial intelligence, it's here, right? We can't slow it down. So why argue with it and move on? Support your local comic book stores. Support your creators out there. Support the crowd funding going on. A lot of smart people now realize that they can save a lot of money by not having someone else do their work for them as far as shipping goes. So support them. You pay $20. Yes, you're overpaying. There's not a Kickstarter you have not overpaid for the book, right? Most books are $5. You're paying $10, $20 for a Kickstarter book. I know the cost, right? But I like supporting Kickstarters. I've supported over 150 Kickstarters plus. The other thing with Kickstarters, don't expect to get the product. I am sitting on 60 Kickstarters going back 4 or 5 years. I still haven't gotten them from. I'm part of that famous artist who still hasn't sent out his Kickstarter from 5 years ago. Okay, cool. It happens. Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it. But get out there. Go to Kickstarter. Find a couple of Kickstarters, some cool Kickstarters for $5, $10. It helps them. Indiegogo, Kickstarter is a little bit different. Kickstarters, you have to hit a go. Indiegogo is no matter what you go, if you get funded. So very, very interesting there. Of course, you want to support all the shows selling on the experience or the talk shows on here. Make sure to follow those. There's a lot of cool conversations on that. Most of the time, you don't get to hear. The media in the comic book world, in general, isn't very good. Right? If they're very big on a store closing, a store closes, oh my gosh, that's top bill. A store opening, yeah, they might talk about it, but who cares, right? If last week the kick was people dying, a lot of the pages nonstop, people dying. Every single person had an article. Right now, we're averaging 5 to 10 new stories a week. No one talks about those. So our media does not favor local comic book stores. They don't favor many indie creators. So you got indie. So if you don't know the difference, you have indie and then you have independent. Independent is like Image, Boom, Dark Horse, IDW. An indie creator is not part of that. They're by themselves. So they create their own books. They do all their own editing. They go to the printer. They check in their books. Most likely, they're shipping their books. There's a lot of work to do for an indie creator. If you ever look at an indie creator at a convention, you say, why are they doing this? Because they need all the help they can get and all the exposure that they get. If you go independent, you get great exposure, but you get bunched in with a whole bunch of other people. So if you're a writer out there, if you're a creator out there, if you got a book coming up, learn how to do Kickstarters, use Facebook Live to talk about what's going on. You've got to really be part of the community 24/7. Don't always talk about your book. Tell people who you are, what you're about. Do you read comics? Do you collect comics? It's very important for people to open up their wallets for you if they kind of know who you are. If they know who you are, if I know who they are, I'm going to open up my wallet for them. They might not have the best art in the world. Listen, most of these guys, you look at their art and it's like, wow. But it's the fact that they're actually trying, and why not support them? There's very few people that jumped into this industry like gangbusters from their first book or their first cover. Now, I can mention a couple people. I don't, because those people got gifted their spots, and we don't want to talk about that. But that's fine. What are they supposed to say no? So there are some people in this industry that have been very fortunate, have very good friends in the industry to support them and get them to where they have to get at. So other things that I had. So the difference, if you are reading trade paperbacks, it's very interesting on trade paperbacks to understand what trade paperbacks are. You have story arcs, right, which is a compilation. Traditionally in the comic book world, nowadays they have 6 issues. Started off as 3, went to 4, went to 6, and then major story arcs are 12 to 100. Secret Invasion, 144, Dark Reign, 85, those type of things. But when you buy a trade paperback, you want to look inside. It will tell you if it's just a single story arc. So Bravest Warrior, this is actually, what is this, chapter 25, I believe, or volume 7. This is all one story compiled. So if you buy, especially Bravest Warrior is a great example. If you bought number 7, 1, 10, and 16, it would not matter. Now, 1 gives you some character development, but other than that, it does not matter. Each book is compiled as its own story arc. So if you were to buy Secret Invasion, for instance, you might have to buy the compendium, and if you didn't, you would have to buy a whole bunch of prestiges to get the whole story because it's just overwhelming. So if you buy Chew, right? If you buy Chew trade number 1, you need to buy Chew trade number 2 and number 3 because it's ongoing. It's an ongoing story arc. So understand that, but a lot of, especially the cartoons that are usually single story arcs, Infinite Gauntlet, obviously a single story arc. So it's very important when you go out and get trades. Keep in mind, you can go to Wiki and get all the information that you want. Obviously, you can go to marvel.com, punch in trade paperback. That will give you a lot of information, but know what you're buying all the time. There's nothing worse than buying a trade at number 8 and you had to buy trade number 4 trying to figure out, okay, what is the story about? So always know that trades in theory save you money. In theory, Infinite Gauntlet, if you buy the Raw collection, Raw is going to cost you $100 versus $24 for the trade. On the flip end, Secret Invasion, Young Avengers, which were $3.99 each, $4, so there's only 3 of them, that's $12. Well, the Prestige trade is $16.99, so it might be cheaper to get that trade, or the singles, the floppies. The benefit of getting the floppies is that's part of the game, right? Is chasing the originals, getting your your stories or your customers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you're missing a 9, it's part of the hunt, right? If you buy a convention or a trade paperback, that is not. We're closed, by. Um, uh, we have a huge fence here, and this guy was able to sneak through to get to this fence. So always investigate what you're reading. Ask a friend, right? Go to a Facebook page and say, hey, has anybody read Infinity Gauntlet? Where should I start off on that? I have not watched any of the Marvel movies or the DC movies or basically any of the comic book movies, so I don't know where to start. So I would actually ask someone if I intended to watch them. That won't happen, but it's always good to ask friends for direction. So I have about 5 minutes left, and then I have to go to my show I've been doing for 5 years, going on 5 years. So very, very cool there. So very cool. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends. There's a lot more than just me talking about random stuff that happens during the week. I do have a TV show coming out. It's called Pop Culture Hunters with a Z. So we've been filming that over the last year. So that's been very, very cool to sit down with a camera flat in your face and talking about crazy things that happen, or buys that we do, or the traveling we do. Last year I went to 57 cities across the nation just to buy products. Always remember, as a buyer, if you're out there buying comics, buy everything. It is cheaper to buy everything than cherry picking a collection. And keep in mind, that's part of that is time. I traditionally buy my collections within 3 to 5 minutes. If you cherry pick, that could take 3, 4, 5 hours. It could take days of negotiating. So try to buy everything that's in front of you. Pay what people ask. If you can look at a collection and pay what they ask, it's pretty simple, right? It's calculating how many comics they have, which you can calculate real fast, right? If it's a long box, $350, short box, $150, times how many boxes they have, and then you divide that by whatever numbers you want to divide it by. You want to never pay more than 25 cents a book. I try to stay between 2 to 5 cents a book. But again, I'm taking all their books. So in general, if you had a common collection, if you had a long box, 350 books, you're going to have maybe 3 to 5 books worth more than $10. That's traditionally how it works. Obviously, if you buy a Silver Age collection, a Golden Age collection, those numbers change. But do your research. Know how to buy books. Know how to use some of the simple apps out there to simplify your time. I do not suggest Overstreet. As an Overstreet advisor, I do not suggest it. It's just a starting point, and the day it comes out, the next day is obsolete on the prices, and it shows you everything. There are a lot of apps you can go to that if you just want to know the key Newman's books in that series. Here's the 8 books. They don't even tell you about the other ones. So we are going to get out of here. I want to thank everybody. We'll be back here Wednesday to talk about more stuff. Usually on Monday, Tuesday, that's the cycle for news. So obviously on Wednesday, I'll have all the news for the week as well. I'm the 6-year Jesse James. Check out The Experience and all the other shows, and I will see you next Wednesday.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at The Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.